So if you're building an AI startup, or really any company right now, you're up against a massive challenge. How do you get an audience when you're starting from absolute zero? This is the AI content cold start problem, and we're going to break down exactly how to solve it.
It all really starts with this paradox. It's this frustrating loop that traps so many new companies. And honestly, this is the main thing that founders and even investors are wrestling with right now.
And it boils down to this one brutally simple question. How do you bootstrap from nothing? Seriously, how do you build any kind of momentum when you're starting with a blank slate? Let's dig into why this is so tricky.
While the whole problem is what you might call the classic cold start death spiral. So it goes like this. Your AI creates some content. Great, but that content needs feedback to get any better. And to get feedback, you obviously need an audience. But, and here's the kicker, to get an audience, you need good content. You see the loop? It's this perfect, maddening circle that just takes you nowhere.
So faced with this impossible loop, what do people do? Well, a kind of standard playbook has popped up. It's the advice you hear everywhere, but let's take a closer look at what it actually means when you put it into practice.
I'm sure you've heard all of this before, right? Oh, just post consistently. You got to use the latest AI tools. And when that doesn't work, the last resort is hire a growth expert. It sounds like a solid plan, but is it? And this is where we get to the brutal reality of it. Post consistently really just means guess for 6 months and pray something works. Use AI tools, that's just a way to amplify your guesses. You're just making more of the stuff that probably isn't working in the first place. And hiring a growth expert, well, a lot of the time, you're just paying someone a lot of money to guess on your behalf. And here's the thing, this unstructured guessing game, it has a very real, very high price tag. We are talking, on average, about $50,000. That is a ton of cash to just burn on trial and error, especially when there's no real system for learning from it. But what if I told you that this entire expensive, frustrating problem is already solved? Yeah, I know it feels like this brand new challenge from the AI era, but as it turns out, it's not new at all.
This quote just nails it. This is a solved problem. The answer has been out there for decades. It just hasn't really been applied to the world of content and marketing. The math to fix this has been hiding in plain sight in other fields.
And you see this problem solved all over the place if you know where to look. In reinforcement learning, they literally call it the cold start problem. For recommendation systems, like Netflix or Spotify, it's called the exploration versus exploitation dilemma. Even in clinical trials, it's known as optimal experimentation. These fields have been working on this for years.
And the solution they all lean on is a framework called multi-armed bandits. Okay, I know, it sounds a little weird, but here's a really simple way to think about it. Imagine you're in a casino, and you're standing in front of a whole row of slot machines, one-armed bandits. Your goal is to figure out which machine pays out the most, but you've only got a handful of coins. A multi-armed bandit strategy is just a mathematical way to figure out which levers to pull, how many times, so you can maximize your winnings without wasting all your money on the machines that don't pay. It's literally designed for learning super fast when you have zero data. Sounds like a perfect fit, right? Okay, so that's the theory. But how do we turn this into a real playbook we can actually use? Well, instead of just randomly pulling one content lever and hoping for the best, this framework lets you systematically test a bunch of different levers at the same time, like different topics or formats or even tones of voice, to see which ones actually pay off. Let's look at a real experiment that did exactly this.
This timeline really shows you the whole journey. At week 0, you have nothing. No subscribers, no data. So the strategy is aggressive exploration. That means you're systematically testing a whole bunch of different ideas, maybe 5 different content pillars, everything from deep technical tutorials to hot takes on industry news. Then by week 4, you start to see some early patterns emerge. Maybe those tutorials are getting way more clicks. By week 8, those patterns become what we call strong priors. You now have actual data telling you what your audience wants. And by week 12, by focusing on what's proven to work, you've actually hit content market fit. It's a structured, data-driven path, not just a bunch of random shots in the dark.
So the huge takeaway here is this fundamental shift in philosophy. We're talking about moving away from unstructured guessing and gut feelings and toward a structured, mathematical way of finding an audience.
And this says it all perfectly. Math designed to find sparse signals is always going to beat human intuition when you're looking for a sparse audience. It's just that simple. When you have almost no data, your gut feelings are just guesses. But the math? The math is built for exactly that situation. So that brings us right back to that first big question. How do you bootstrap from nothing? Well, the real answer isn't to guess harder or to spend more money guessing. It's to use a system.
It's to use math that was specifically designed for starting with nothing.
And maybe the best part of this whole approach is how it completely changes what failure means. If the standard playbook fails, you're just back at square one with nothing to show for it but a lighter wallet. But with this method, even if your first ideas are totally wrong, you don't just fail. You get data. You get quantified uncertainty. You get error bars. You actually fail smarter, and you're ready for the next experiment.